to be here this morning. Excited about the week I get to spend with you. And encourage you to have your Bibles out this morning as we look at our Matthew 14, as we talk about Peter and Peter's faith. I appreciate Rick's prayer, and it took note as he talked about as God opens doors for us. God opens doors. God sends people to us. And I don't know if I've always understood that, but as we talk about our faith this week, having faith in God and what He does and who He is what our message is about. To build our faith and increase our faith, establish our faith. And that's what we want to focus on. And so in our class, I do want to treat this as a class. I have a presentation to present as a sermon, but I want to encourage you to interact. Forgive me if I don't remember names. I remember a whole lot of faces, as I was mentioning when we got here this morning. I don't even remember how to get around Fort Smith anymore. Names are they're gone. They're just gone. I didn't think I was getting very old. I still don't think I'm very old, but my brain is not good. But let's talk. We won't spend a lot of time. We have a shorter class, and so we will spend time here talking about Peter and Peter's faith. And so here in Matthew 14, in verse 24 through verse 32, we find Peter and interacting with Jesus. We know the story probably about Peter walking on water and Jesus walking on water. I will encourage someone want to read this scripture for us. I will just encourage your interaction here in Matthew 14, 24 through 32. Go ahead, Rick.
When he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased.
All right. We know the story, don't we? We know the story. And as I think about Peter, we have not forgiven him of his failure of faith, right? We kind of pick on Peter. He's a little impetuous. And we pick on him, Lord, I'll not deny you. No way I'm going to deny you 3 times. There's no way, right? Doubting Thomas. Have we forgiven Doubting Thomas? Doubting Thomas. How many disciples believed in Jesus before they saw him at his resurrection, after his resurrection? How many disciples believed? No. The only person that believed, think about this, the only person that believed Jesus' resurrection was a thief on the cross. Remember what the thief said? When you come in your kingdom. Everybody else said, until I see him, I'm not going to believe him. There was 10 other apostles. Remember, Judas hung himself. There were 10 other apostles that didn't believe. We pick on Thomas. We pick on Peter, don't we? We do. We judge him, right? But let's think about Peter and what his faith was. What was his faith in this? Notice what happened. So first of all, there was a ship tossed about in waves. These guys were fishermen. They lived in a boat. They lived in a boat. They understood it was tossed about, and they were scared. And Mark says they were toiling, rowing against the wind. We have motorboats today, and even a motor sometimes ain't enough to overcome the wind. aside from the fact wind kicks up big waves. And so they were struggling, and they were fearful. And they saw Jesus, and they're like, oh, you know. But they were fishermen. They lived on the water. They knew the wind. And they had a fear. And Peter had a fear. And it caught up with him. So Jesus spoke to them. First of all, they saw him. And the scripture says, like, I have a New American Standard I'm trying to learn to use. I'm trying to get away from, I have a backup Bible that is the Bible I've used since I was a teenager. It's King James Version. I can't let go of it because I know where the pages are. Okay? I've used that exact Bible, so I'm trying to use the New American Standard. New American Standard says they thought he was a ghost. They were scared. Now, no doubt they were struggling because they weren't getting back to shore. There was fear involved in that. But Jesus says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of me. And I think, too, don't be afraid of the waves, because I think they had a fear of the waves. Peter had a fear of the waves, right? And they had experience with Jesus. As we read and study about the apostles' interaction with Jesus through the Gospels, I mean, Jesus was performing all these miracles. Who is this that even the winds and waves obey him? They've seen all these works of Jesus. Yet they had a fear and they had a faith. And so Peter had a great faith. First he says, Jesus, bid me come, and I can walk on water, right? Peter said, verse 28, if this is you, command me to come to you on the water. Wow. Peter wanted to walk on the water with Jesus. I mean, I'm kind of into an adventure, but I don't like to risk my life. And the waves were obviously high. Peter had faith in Jesus. You're out there on the water. Hey, I want to come out there with you. Let me join you. I mean, you think about it. Was it just strictly recreational, exercising his faith? Jesus says, come on out. And so Peter does, right? Peter come down out of the ship. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to dismount a boat in the water. It's not easy. Boats don't just sit flat in the water to begin with. I don't know how big this boat was. It might have been 20, 30 feet long. I don't know. But even, sizable boats, you step off. He stepped off into the water. That took faith. He's not expecting to swim. He believes he's going to walk on water because Jesus said, come. He's exercising his faith here, isn't he? He has exercised his faith. And then he literally did walk on water. Peter walked on water. Because of his faith, he walked on water. And I don't know if we think about that much, do we? He did. He walked on water. And notice, Jesus wanted him, right? Jesus said, come on out. If you will let me walk on water. If you command me, I can come. Right? And so Jesus says, come on out. Why not? Yes, you can. You can do this. I will do this, Jesus says. I will do this. And so Peter steps out of the boat and walks on water. So Jesus bids him come. Jesus says, come. Come on out, Peter. You think Jesus was sitting there saying, yeah, Peter, he's going to forget. He's going to fail. I think Jesus knew what the heart of man. Think about that. I mean, because that's what happened at Jesus' trials. Peter, you're going to fail. Jesus knew these things. Jesus says, no, come on. Come on. Come out. So Peter does, right? And then this part of the story that we all remember, he doubted, right? He lacked faith. He got worried. What did he see? What did Peter see? Winds and the waves. Well, we could probably relate to that though, right? When it gets hard, the waves are tall. Jesus is standing right there, but he begins to sink, doesn't he? And he becomes fearful. He sees those, and he becomes fearful. Notice, though, even in his doubting, in his fear, where does he turn? Where does Peter turn when he begins to sink? he calls to Jesus. Anybody in here think they'd be tempted to swim back for the boat? It would cross my mind. The boat's right here, and Jesus is over here. I can swim back to the boat, and I'll be okay and rely on my swimming. And maybe he knew. Maybe he knew he wasn't going to get back with the winds. However, I don't know how high the waves were in these big bodies of water. If you're a fisherman, we have some fishermen here. You get a big body of water and you get wind, those waves build, and they'll get big. He didn't swim back for the boat. He didn't rely on himself. Again, Peter's faith. We pick on him because he lost faith for a moment, because he feared for a moment. But even in his fear, he turned back where he needed to go, didn't he? He says, Jesus, save me. Disciples, throw me a buoy, throw me a rope. You know, they had stuff on there because people fall out of boats all the time. They had stuff. They had ropes. They didn't call for the disciples to help him. Jesus. Peter had great faith. Faith to not just walk on water. Faith to turn back to the one that he knew could save him. Peter had a great faith. Peter had great faith. So he didn't swim back for the boat. He didn't wait for a rope to be thrown back. He turned to Jesus. And so we see, and for me, I never looked at this part of the story about Peter's faith. And I think that's a habit that I have, and maybe you have. We're in the habit of judging people's faults sometimes. Right? Sometimes we focus on the faults of others and not on their successes, of their value and their worth. I remember as an engineer, I would hire contractors. I'd go select a contractor, do this work for me, do that work for me. I didn't hire an electrical contractor to clean bathrooms, or vice versa. I didn't hire somebody to clean bathrooms as an electrical contractor. The electrical contractor had their skills. They were not bathroom cleaners. Bathroom cleaners are not electrical contractors. I don't pick somebody for what they can't do. I select them for what they're capable of. So I don't want to focus on their faults, because we all have faults. Peter had faults. What can we do from a positive perspective? Look at their worth. Look at their value. Peter had great faith. What didn't he? He had great faith. He walked on water. He stepped down out of the boat. He looked to Jesus. If you bid me, I can come. Jesus, you can save me. I'm in trouble. Jesus, save me. Jesus saved him. And so a lesson of faith, and that's what I want to talk about this week, some of our foundations of faith. How can we have the faith of Peter? You know, sometimes I wish I just had his faith in all his failings. Just have his faith. Because he showed great faith here, didn't he? And so he did walk on water. He had that. So what prevents our faith? And it comes down to fear versus faith, right? Do we fear or are we faithful? Do we fear what might happen? Do we fear failure? Well, you know, if we drive down here tomorrow, we're going to drive down I-49, and I know deer like to feed in the median on I-49. What that means is they cross over I-49 all the time. I remember when they opened the interstate up just north of the tunnel, there were lots of deer incidents there because deer just cross roads. It's a risk. Am I afraid if I go, I might hit a deer, which we did go into see family year before last Thanksgiving. Sucker was standing smack dab in the middle of I-55, just looking at us. Boom! There went the car. That was it. Airbags go off in the car nowadays. They're done, totaled. This didn't have enough value. About $6,000 or $8,000 just to replace the airbag system. There's always a risk, right? Why do we? Sometimes we do fear failure. We fear mistakes. Well, if I do something, if I try this, if I take a Bible class at night, I might make a mistake. Or if I lead singing this morning, I might start the song off wrong. Or I might forget and sing the fourth verse twice. Or that third verse of a 5-verse song, you get into the middle of it, I might forget where I'm at. I've done that. You know, you start them too high, start them too fast, start them too low. You can fear all these mistakes. Is that justified? I mean, it's real. Anybody in here like to swim in the ocean? Anybody who's afraid of sharks? We watched Jaws too many times. How many people die of shark attacks? We watched Jaws. We're scared of salt water because of Jaws. I remember we went to Clearwater Beach as a kid. Mom took us out there, big vacation, Clearwater Beach, Florida. Mom was like, oh, don't go in that water. I'm like, we went to the beach. And I'm a little kid. I'm 8, 9, 10. Don't go in the beach. Don't go in the water on the beach. I'm like, we went to the beach. What are we supposed to do? There's water. We're redneck kids. We're used to playing in ponds and stuff. There's water. We're going to go in the water and swim. Well, there's all these stingrays and jellyfish and these little creatures, urchins and stuff in the water. They're going to stick your feet. And then she had us terrified. Something's going to happen. Well, okay, so something could happen. What's the probability? Do I live my life on those probabilities? I've hit more deer than I've been stung by jellyfish in my life. I've hit more deer than I've been attacked by sharks. I've hit more deer than I have been attacked by a bear, a cougar, a black bear or brown bear for that matter. I haven't died yet. I haven't even seen those things in the wild. You think you fear them? I know most of you probably know I love to solo backpack, okay? And you get out, daytime's our world. It's daylight. You can see everything, right? Well, I've backpacked at night too. That's not my world anymore. That's predator world because they can see at night. I can't see. I've hit more deer at night than I've seen any of those predators. Pack of wolves. Idaho had packs of wolves. Had grizzly bears. Black bears here in Arkansas and Colorado. Is our fear justified? Is our fear in sharks justified? And somebody's going to die this year being bit by a shark. I bet it's not going to be any of us here. Even if we set foot in the water. So is it justified for us to fear that? It could happen. Peter said, if you bid me, I come. What could happen? Oh, all kinds of bad things could happen to Peter. But he had faith, didn't he? So is our fear really justified? We fear mistakes. I can relate to this. We fear mistakes because we're afraid we're going to be criticized. That's a lot of it, right? Oh, everybody's going to tell me about that second verse that I messed up, leaving the building. Or I did this or I did that. Somebody's always quick to point out, oh, you done this wrong, and oh, you done that wrong, and we're quick to criticize, aren't we? We are. That's a lesson of itself. Condemn, judge, we can crawl back into a shell and just not do anything.
In Peter's case, it was definitely justified for him to have fear because normally we don't walk on water. And without God's help, we're not going to walk on water.
Yep. I still don't know anybody walking on water. You?
No, I can't walk on water.
Yeah. Can you swim?
I can.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm water skiing in the ocean.
Yeah.
The waves like he's doing here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's virtually impossible.
I can imagine.
How much faith you got in skiing? You cannot ski in that.
And the problem with skiing is you got to be going fast to get up. So whatever happens, it happened at a fast rate of speed on top of that.
His fear was justified here.
But he overcame it.
He did. He did.
And just like disembarking,
Yeah, yeah,
off the boat.
yeah,
And it's a small boat.
yeah.
Depends on how high the waves are. It's not staying in that boat.
It's not.
And he somehow he had a leap of faith.
He did.
And leaped off the boat, and then from then on, it was just him focusing
On
on
Jesus.
Jesus. But then he took his eye off he unfocused, and then he was gone.
Have you ever canoed or kayaked? Talk about an unstable vessel. You got to stay up. You cannot disembark a canoe or kayak. Well, and without dumping. They roll. They roll. You know, and I know a boat was a little bigger than that, but reality is a vessel in water is not stable. It's like, okay, maybe all the disciples, the other 11 walked to the opposite side of the boat so Peter could stand over here. But still, you've got to step off, and you're jumping off. He's not at water level. His boat would have been swamped. His boat is sitting up out of the water. However big the boat was, is how many feet he was out of the water. Yeah, yeah. Maybe catch a wave coming right at the edge, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's just so much about Peter's faith. But he trusted in God. He trusted in God. So overcoming fear. When I backpack, especially, mainly at night. It's at night. Because predators at night, that's their world. And you can sit in your mind, and you can sit and you can dwell on what could go wrong until you have yourself terrified. That's about anything. If you sit and dwell on what could happen, you pick something out. I'm going to get bit by a shark. And I've seen some videos. Sharks can just about come up on sand. They come up. They can get up in this shallow water. You can sit there and you can have yourself so terrified that you can't get yourself in the water. And it's real to you. And it's about there's a mental strength there. To me, they're saying, you know what? I'm not going to fear this because there is not a shark right here. There are only a dozen people that die every year from a shark attack. There's only a couple people die a year of a mountain lion attack. We have mountain lions in Arkansas. We do. They're here. We have lots of black bear. How many black bear attacks happen a year? Just the attack. Just somebody who gets attacked every year by a black bear in Arkansas. 3? A couple. Is it going to be you? Well, you may not be out in the woods. But they come in town. If you live in Waldron and Neenah, I'm always hearing there was lots of bear interaction. Okay, so it happens, but is it really something we should fear? I say it's not. I say fear is something we can control. And it may be like controlling our hunger pains. I carry a little extra weight because I like to eat. I like the taste of food. I'm not hungry. I like the taste of food. But it's about a mental strength, right? But it's having faith in God, and that faith in God comes back, do we know who God is? Do we know what God does? What's God capable of? How does God interact with those who are His? How does God interact with His children? How does He perceive us? What does He do? In Peter's case, Jesus says, come on out. In Peter's case, Jesus says, I got you, Peter. You're all right. It's okay. And so that's what I want to talk about this week. Because we live in a society, and reality is we are shielded from disaster. We have insurance. I'm sorry, but if a tornado comes through, demolishes my house, you know what? Next week, weeks later, a year later, however long it takes to build a house, my insurance company replace that house. Not even think about it. If I hit that deer, I was only carrying liability insurance, so I didn't get anything for that car. But insurance, if you have full coverage insurance, we are shielded from those disasters. Our society, we have insurance. We don't fear losses. Now, you go back 50, 100 years, especially around here, farmers prayed for rain. They were concerned in Arkansas about rain in summer. You know why? Because that's what they ate all winter. We don't have that. My grandma told me as a kid, I asked her, I don't know why I would ask this question. I did. I was like, what was your biggest challenge raising children? What was your biggest concern? That her kids lived to adulthood. That was her fear. It wasn't food. Now, they didn't have food. They bought beans by the 50-pound bag, and they bought lard by the however pound tub that was, and that's how they ate. They had beans every day of the week, and they had ham bone in it for Sunday dinner. That was the way they ate. They was poor. Her concern was that her kids lived to adulthood. That was what she feared. Does anybody fear that today? We don't. We have hospital systems. We can go and they can cure just about everything. I mean, it happens. But if you've ever done any genealogy research of your family, people lost children. 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old. Can you imagine as a parent trying to care for your child and you can't do anything to fix it? Now, if you're a believer, you turn to God. We don't think about that today. Today, we turn to the hospital. We turn to the doctor because we know they can fix it. In our minds, sometimes we don't have that faith to turn to Jesus, right? Or do we? And that's what I want to encourage us. We don't recognize, I don't believe, and at least I can speak, I'll speak for myself. I had not recognized how much we rely on what we have for our security. So if I hit a deer, I got insurance. If a tornado comes through, I've got insurance. If I lose a job, I've got insurance. If I lose a job, I've got a savings account. I got a bank I can go to. They even give you loans. You pay that back in the future. Apparently, you can get credit cards, and we're not going to hurt. We're not going to hurt. And so all those are there. So one of the things I want us to consider and think about is the fear of failure can paralyze us that we don't act. How many people were sitting in that boat and not walking on water? 11 didn't even, we don't know why. There were 11 sitting back, and they're probably thinking, oh, there goes Peter again. Watch this, guys. See what happens to what were they thinking? There's no telling. We don't know. We're not told. But they didn't get out of the boat. They didn't have the faith or desire or, this was not a test of salvation. But Peter got out of the boat. And 11 other disciples sat back and, I don't know, I can make up stuff. There went Peter. Look at him. Here he goes again. He does this all the time. Won't he ever learn? Can you imagine somebody saying that? I can hear it. I can hear myself saying that, at least at one point in my life. Well, he not ever learned the impetuous Peter, because he was impetuous, but he got out of the boat. He exercised his faith. And so really, consider failure is not trying, right? Not trying and not learning. Exercising in life, experience in life, we learn things. And we need that. James says exercising your faith develops patience. Exercise. We think of physical exercise, pumping iron or resistance training or running and those kind of things. Spiritually speaking, our faith is exercised when we attempt. And so, in my mind, don't be afraid to try something. I'm standing here preaching today because I decided at a point in life that I want to try to preach. Have I failed? Have I made mistakes? Well, you better believe it. And I'm a completely different person today than I was when I left Fort Smith 6 years ago. Just 6 short years. Then it seems short, long, I don't know. I'm a different person. And I know for me, so I can't judge what you do and what you try. I can't judge your faith. I want to encourage you to expand your faith, explore your faith, understand your faith. What is your foundation of your faith? And we're going to talk about that this morning. And having that proper foundation, we can get out of the boat. We can try things, and we might fail. But you know what? What's worse? Trying and failing or not trying at all? I submit to you, in God's kingdom, not trying at all is the lesser. So He wants us to try. He said, Peter, come on. Give it a go, Peter. It's okay. I've got you. And that's faith in God. That, yes, I might fail. But along the way, I can achieve what He wants me to do. I can work and be a laborer in the kingdom in some way. It might be reading Scripture. It might be leading prayer. It might be doing Bible classes. It might be doing a 2-minute devotional on Wednesday night. Whatever it is. And specifically, we need not be hypercritical of someone trying, because that invokes fear and intimidation and even phobia from people standing in front saying, oh, they're going to pick me apart. Because sometimes we can. But let's not, right? Let's allow their faith to develop and grow and support them and encourage them along the way. So failure is not trying and making mistakes. That's not failure. Now, if we don't learn, discover a different outcome. Maybe we try something and realize, well, I was on the right path, but I need to detour a little bit. That's not the right way of handling that, maybe, or whatever it is. We learn along the way, and we'll do things different in the future. But if we never tried, we may not ever learn, right? So try. And we've always heard this at work: the ones not making mistakes are the ones not working. Right? If you're doing something, you're going to make a mistake. We're human. We are still human. God knew from the time Adam and Eve sinned what's going to happen. We're going to fail. We're going to stumble. We're going to make mistakes. God says, you know what? That's okay. I got you. Peter, I got you. It's okay. It's okay. He wants us to be saved. Relying on God, when we talk about his attributes of what he does for us, he does make a way of escape. We are never overpowered by Satan unless we give him that territory. We give him that ground. God gives us a way of escape. We have a way. Peter had a way, and in the end, Peter's way was to reach out for Jesus. And certainly probably a great lesson for us to learn there. Talking about, well, the Lord hears us. He sees us. He knows. He knows our needs. He knows our wants. He knows our desires. Now, in 2 Peter, it talks about in the times of judgment, he knows how to deliver the godly. If we are in that group, he is there. He's aware and he's concerned and he's there for us. I love the example of Lot. You remember when Lot was standing in the city, the angel was there and said, Lot, we've got to go because God's going to destroy this place. What did Lot do? Y'all remember that story? He lingered. So Lot, did you listen? He lingered. God's going to destroy this city. Lot, God is going to destroy this city. You've got to go. Lot lingered. And the angel says, here, let's go, Lot. And took Lot and his family out of town. Got them out. God knows how to deliver the just. He knows how to deliver us. And just for myself, I've not always recognized and had that faith in God that it'll be okay. If I'm just and I'm on the right path, my time is up. Faith over anxiety in Matthew 6, and that we have faith. We talked about the thief on the cross, and we will dispose of this. Jesus saves. Peter reached for Jesus. We can too, and we can have faith in God. We're going to talk about that more this week and dig into that more this week, and I look forward to these lessons with you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate everybody's comments that made comments.